Welcome to the Game of Life podcast, where we bring you inspiring softball stories, insightful tips from coaches and players, and explore how the game transcends its boundaries to become a metaphor for life. Whether you're a sports enthusiast, a casual fan, or someone just looking for inspiration, you're in for a treat. We'll unravel the tales that go beyond the scoreboard. Discover how perseverance and hard work on the field translates into resilience in your daily challenges. Learn about teamwork, leadership, and the unwavering spirit that fuels success, not just in sports, but in the game of life. We have a non-softball, can I say guru person?
I think so.
I mean,
yeah.
whatever floats your boat.
All right, we have Matt Gill on. We go way back, literally, with Matt. 20 years ago, 20 plus years ago, if you guys knew you'd be doing this with this old man right now, we'd probably be laughing, right? But
Yeah.
adventures, life, world takes us in funny places. And before we say anything, Matt, you know what the podcast is about, and we know what you're about. So just tell us about yourself. Go back as far as you want. The floor is yours. And then in our unedited way, we'll start asking questions and have a fun convo.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, I'll try and keep this as brief. I normally say that, and then I start rambling.
That's okay.
We'll
Ramble away. We encourage that here.
But yeah, hello everybody. Name's Matt Gill. Been lifelong friends of the Richmonds all the way back. I mean, Jen and I I think we've got baby pictures together, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, like long time. From Horseheads, New York. I played college lacrosse for a couple of years, till my career was ended by injury. But outside of that, I now work for a company called Goalie Smith Lacrosse. I'm the head of men's development there, working with guys all the way from the professional ranks down to little third and fourth graders. I actually had a session tonight that was sixth, seventh, and eighth graders. So coming from all parts of the East Coast, some guys from Philly, some guys from Maryland, and some guys from Virginia. The company's based out of Baltimore, Maryland, but we travel all over the states. And then, yeah, I mean, outside that, I coached in college for a couple of years. I transferred to a couple of different schools and learned a few lessons along the way.
Just a few.
Not too many.
That's awesome. So I want to go back a little bit to high school. So I guess tell us your frame of mind in high school, like what sports did you play, why lacrosse, and then how'd that, take you to the college level too?
So yeah, lacrosse I actually started out as a baseball guy, and during T-ball, when in the younger ranks, like they obviously don't let the pace of play get too out of control because you got kids picking daisies in the outfield, and I was probably one of them. But I was somebody who's just like needed something going on all the time, and lacrosse was the opposite of that in the spring. And they had a position at the time that didn't involve running, and I had good hand-eye, so I was naturally kind of fell into the goalie ranks. And then I just kind of just fell in love with it. And then my mindset and stuff, like through sports and whatnot through high school was, I mean, both my mom and dad were college athletes, and my mom ran track and cross country and whatnot. My dad played golf, but they all played different sports and whatnot growing up throughout high school. But in terms of like sports and my mindset in high school was, I didn't realize at the time, I guess, how much the lessons and stuff that you have in sports really carried over into your everyday life until I got out of it. And I wish I had realized that a little bit sooner. But I kind of just like grew up with a sports centered household. Like every day or every season, you were going to do something. It was fall, winter, and spring. Like there was no downtime. You needed to be doing something. You're not going to sit around the house and do nothing. And I honestly thank my parents for that because it allowed me to try a lot of new things. also figure out what I liked and didn't like. And I think a lot of that is also translated into life now in terms of like how I kind of attack life in terms of not being afraid to try things and being afraid to fail and figure out, like maybe I do like this, or what, maybe this isn't for me. But yeah, I think like lacrosse for me was also a ticket to go to college and get into some schools and whatnot that I may not have had the grades to get into. Like, not saying I didn't have bad grades. I was in Mr. Richmond's Honors Academy, but I'm not that good of a test taker. So the SAT kind of limited my opportunities to go to some Ivies and whatnot. But lacrosse was also a way to get some academic money, or not academic, some athletic money and whatnot too, to help lower the cost of the school.
What did you originally go to college for major wise? So a big thing with my students is we'll go out on rotations and internships and mentorships, and they introduce themselves like, "Oh, hi, I'm Johnny. I'm going to college to play baseball. Hi, I'm Susie. I'm going to play soccer." And sometimes the mentors will be like, "Oh, are you going to study at all?" And I mean, we the three of us love sports. It's second to none. But what did you go to college for when you weren't playing lacrosse? Well, and we'll get into that more. But
Yeah.
It was more so I went to college actually for entrepreneurship. And I mean, that was the big reason why I did your honors academy back in high school. And that changed a million times. It went from that to salesman to marketing to wanting to own my own landscaping company to wanting to own a seal coating company, solar panels, wanting to all over the place.
Yeah, that's awesome. How important do you think it was for you then to keep your options open? Because I feel like it's really easy for high school students going into college to say, no, 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 I have this all figured out. Like, I know what I'm going to do. Here's my 12-step plan, and I'm just going to carry it out. Where I think one of the biggest pieces of advice you can give a high school senior is like, try to prove yourself wrong. Like, do so many other things that you are so 100% sure that you're happy with the choice that you made.
I think that, especially now seeing it from the coaching perspective, but also like going through it, it was the best thing that I could have done. Um, Not only from from a puberty standpoint, hormonal, mental, physical, like those 8 years are where you change the most. And it's also where you don't have mom and dad by your side, kind of just telling you like, hey, like you should do this, you should do that. Like it's your first time being out on your own and you're gonna fail. Like but you teach and learn a lot about yourself and things that you need to work on from those experiences and going out and kind of falling flat on your face. And I think that like that firsthand experience of not having my options limited and being able to like fail and fail again at something and then not have the pressure to be like, well, I put myself in a corner here. This is my only way out. But to be able to kind of venture off the different routes and also kind of give myself the freedom to test things and see like, is this something that I really like? Or is this something that, you know what, maybe this isn't for me, could be for someone else, but you know what, it's not for me. So yeah, I think it's one of the things that I try to preach to kids too now when I'm coaching with them and whatnot. And like right now it's like a big recruiting season for lacrosse because on 9/1, all the juniors can start getting recruited. So I'm having a lot of these calls and whatnot with kids. And they're asking me about this, and this, and like, oh, well, like this is what I want to do, and I really want to go here, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you can't pin yourself down that early, man, because you're also 2 years from going to that school, and who knows what's going to happen in 2 years? Like maybe that coaching staff changes, and like we just had a kid that coaching staff changed, and sometimes those guys come in and they want their own guys. It's like this kid was committed, was supposed to go to the school after next year. He was going into his senior year, and now he's not able to go to the school anymore. So I think just having that freedom and whatnot it's something that you really can't put a price tag on.
Yeah. And I think growing up in a smaller town too, like we did, right? How do you feel like you changed the most throughout college? Because I think perspective is a big thing too. Just getting outside of just defined area a little bit. So I'm just curious your answer to how you think you changed the most throughout college.
Yeah. I think think you hit the nail on the head. Like when you're in a small town and like I hate sounding cocky, but like being a good athlete,
Yeah.
you kind of you develop a little bit of an ego here and there and some cockiness and whatnot. And then you go out to the real world in college and all of a sudden you've got kids from all over parts of the country and that sample size shrinks and it's like more of a concentrated high level talent. Like you get humbled real quick. But it's something too where it's like at first it seems it's very shell shocking because you're used to going out there and kind of just being the man and like being able to do what you want to do. But I think that's really like the first bit of change. Like when I learned how to start to deal with change was going out and developing that perspective of, you know what, I'm actually not as big of a piece as I thought I was. I can be, but I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to find other ways to do it and make changes in my life to get to that point. Not saying it can't happen or you can't get back to being the star player on the team and whatnot, but you definitely learn a lot.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I was going to ask, and this just piggybacks what you were just saying, but describe what you thought college was going to be like, and then tell us what really happened. Like I think so many athletes, especially in our small town, you're treated like rock stars and royalty during the whole process, and you get recruited, and off you go. You're never going to see anybody again. What's it like when you actually step on campus compared to what you thought?
I mean, I thought I was going. So we had a kid when I was coming in who was my freshman year, who had been starting for 3 years, who was conference goalie of the year, like unbelievable goalie. Like I knew I wasn't going to play my freshman year, and I was okay with that. But I was expecting. I told myself like I was expecting to come in and start 3 years after that and be a team captain, and then all of a sudden go and take the team to conference title and like really bring this new program into the ranks and whatnot. And then life hit. Like I got sophomore year came, like I had my opportunity, and took advantage of it in some way, shape, or form, not to the level that I wanted. For factors contributing like that I didn't control the controllables myself. And then because I didn't control the controllables, like when the outside factors that you have no control over hit, then it's really like a tidal wave and you stand no chance. And then all of a sudden, like I got hit with a lacrosse ball and hit in a spot where you don't want to get hit. And next thing you know, like career's done. And like it just you learn so much, like, and it humbles you fast, and you got to be able to like pivot and think on your feet. Like, what do I want to do? Like, all of a sudden, I can't play lacrosse. This is all I've known for 18 years of my life. Like, what do I do now? And I think kind of going back to what Ali said, like not pinning myself down in a corner and putting myself in a spot where I was just all lacrosse or like all going to this school for like a certain reason. Like it gave me the opportunity to then transfer out because I had good grades and whatnot, go to a different school and be able to finish my degree. And also like it opened me up to a lot of experiences that helped put me where I'm at now. Like when I left and I went to the University of Buffalo for a semester and I wasn't involved in the game of lacrosse in any way, shape, or form, it was like the worst time of my life. Like, I mean, and I learned a lot about myself. Like I thought getting done with that year and then going through the summer and not playing or anything, like that's fine. And then all of a sudden things come around and you start getting back into that September mode and you're like, I'm supposed to be going back and like going to fall ball and going to team lifts and doing this and doing that. Like not having that, it's kind of like it's very eye opening, and it made me realize like, do I need to get back involved with the game in some way, shape, or form? Do I try to go back and play again even though I got hurt, or do I try and find a way into coaching or something like that? But I mean, those experiences and those worst times, like they've helped me realize I needed to get back into lacrosse, and that helped me get the coaching job when I was at Oswego, and that landed me the coaching job at LIU, and that helped me get the job at Goalie Smith. So I mean, I wouldn't go back and rewrite or redo any of it in a different way, but it's very eye opening.
And I think one of the most difficult things too is like no matter what happens to you, the world keeps spinning. Like nobody stops for you. I think when you stop playing your sport and all your old teammates are still playing it, like you said, like that fall time hits and you're like, wait, everyone else is still doing that and I'm just like a fish out of water. It feels like I'm not where I'm supposed to be. But I think that's a huge lesson for life too, because adversity doesn't stop as soon as your sport's over. I feel like that's something that I think people realize it, but it's just a new sort of adversity. It's just you have to learn how to deal with it through your sport so that when it comes in life, you're prepared for it with the right tools.
I agree. And I think part of it too is with a lot of athletes nowadays, like this is a conversation that I've been having a bunch with kids, and somebody had it with me. I don't remember who, but like your identity cannot be found in the sport. Like that's the biggest thing that I try to preach to kids nowadays is if you have your identity come from your sport and your play in that sport, like you're not playing that sport the rest of your life. So when that gets taken away from you, like you're naturally going to lose part of yourself as a person, but you can't lose everything because of it. And I mean, for me, like I found my identity and my faith through religion and Jesus Christ and Christianity and whatnot. Like that to me is something that's I grew up playing FCA, and I think I know Jono did some FCA stuff, and
So did I too, yeah.
Allie as well. Like finding my identity through our Lord and Savior is honestly, it's the greatest thing in my life that I could have done, because now I don't that's something that's always going to be there, whether it's my time here on this earth or my time not. And it gives me a way to look at myself from a lens of service and helping other people and serving him and not getting caught up in my own ways and whatnot, because then my identity doesn't come from having a good day or a bad day. It's defined by your actions and a lot of other things that just, I don't know, it's helped me a ton mentally.
So you're a high energy guy, I know that. And you're a high energy guy when you coach. How difficult that, or how easy is that to give that perspective to the players you're coaching? Because they're young, you've been their age, they haven't been your age. Is it difficult to get that message across? Because if you're helping them, they take lacrosse super seriously, and it probably is their identity. So how do you get that across without preaching?
The biggest problem, it's a really good one.
Yeah.
I would say this. Like,
I mean, I know you're high energy, and maybe that's why
that's part of it. But when I do things that I don't like or I don't love, I'm not that high energy. I would say this. I try to preach, like, I try and go the faith route in talking about religion and whatnot, and not like pushing it on people, but just speaking from an experience standpoint. Like when I didn't have a strong relationship with Christ, I was supposed to go to, when I was leaving college, this is probably the best way to put it. When I was leaving college, I was supposed to go down to Florida to sell solar panels and become a financial analyst. And I was praying one day, and I was just asking, like, I just was asking God, like, is this the path for me? Like, if this isn't the path for me, like, please direct me in a way that's going to put me in a platform that's going to allow me to serve you.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I went down to my brother trained with Goalie Smith before I started working there. And during the summer of COVID, I was down there because when if you left the state, you couldn't come back, and you came back, you had to quarantine. Well, my mom and dad couldn't leave the state because they had to work. So who was taking brother to Maryland? It was me. And I told I told them when I got the Oswego coaching job that I got the Oswego coaching job, and I went down and took him to coach, and they were like, good, like, do you want to start coaching some of our sessions? I was like, okay.
Ah,
And I went down there one day, and like I was just coaching a session, like not really thinking anything of it. Was still supposed to go down to Florida in a month and a half. And all of a sudden I go to leave the session, and one of my bosses comes up and just taps me on the shoulder, and he's like, hey man, like we've got these 2 weeks of camps, these next 2 weeks, that's called our Goalie Smith Experience. It's the big camp series that we run. There's going to be college coaches all over the face of this thing. Like, do you want to stay and coach? Like, it'd be a really good opportunity for you, like, if you want to get into college coaching. And I was like, I had literally two pairs of clothes. I had one on me and one in a backpack. And I was like, yeah, like I would love to call my dad, because I was working for Diamond and Bacorn at the time,
yeah.
for the moving company, until I went down to Florida to make some money and coached there, and then got a job offer from LIU. And I was like, and I lost 20 grand when I took the job offer at LIU, because I was a volunteer coach at the time. They didn't approve the third assistant until a couple of years ago. And it was the greatest decision I've ever made in my life. Like, not the money or anything, but I was able to go to work every day,
Yeah.
and just be the happiest person on the face of the planet, and feel like I've made the most impact on people. And it didn't involve anything tangible. It was all just impact and being able to be somewhere and whatnot. And none of that would have been possible without praying to God and just having complete and the utmost faith in his way.
Wow, that's very cool. I think that's a really strong message too. Just everything happens for a reason, like truly too. And I think it's hard to see it when you're in those moments, right? Like your injury, obviously, we would never want that to happen. But like you said, you wouldn't rewrite any part of your journey because it's made you exactly who you are today. And I think even with the coaching too, like imagine you can go down there with your brother, and imagine if you didn't coach that first come, like it's just crazy too that so like events have to lay out perfectly for things to happen, and when they do, it's awesome.
It is.
It makes this is impossible to know, but if you went and had a storied collegiate career, you wonder if you'd coach. I mean, we don't know the answer to that, but you wonder if you'd love it as much.
I agree. I saw a video on Instagram. It was Mike Tomlin was talking, and he said, I know Steelers.
Yeah.
Amen.
He was talking in an interview at a podcast, and he goes, I think the best coaches are guys that didn't have storied careers, because those guys feel like they still have something left to give to the game. Like, you get those people that go out and have Hall of Fame careers and whatnot, and they're known for something in that sport, and they're like, you know what, it's time for me to give it up. Like, I've made my mark, I've made my legacy and whatnot. But the best coaches, like those guys that were grinding to make a college roster, and then maybe on a practice squad or something in the professional league, like, and you really just truly love the game and love a sport for what it is, if they're not able to make that mark, they're going to do anything in their power to make that way. I could not agree with that anymore.
Yeah, and I think that you just hit the nail on the head too. Like when a coach loves the game, it is so easy to see. Like I remember growing up too, playing for coaches who just love the game, and it honestly makes you love the game a little bit more too. Being a coach show up like that, and now that I'm an adult and I see like all the adversity you go through in everyday life, and as an adult too, like for them to show up like that still every day, 100%, their authentic self, just excited to coach us, like that inspires me as a coach now too, because no matter what's going on in my life, I'm 100% in when I step on that field every day as a coach, because I think it's your responsibility to, like, you have emotions in your hands, you're shaping their career, their love for their sport. And I think when you love the game that much, you understand like how serious that position is as a coach, and the effect that you can have on young people playing the game that you love.
So do you know where Tomlin went to college?
Jeez, I should know this.
Well, he went to William and Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what other NFL coach he played college football with there?
I do not.
Sean McDermott from the Bills.
Really?
So they played together. They joke with each other. I think it was McDermott. we'd have to look that said Tomlin was never better than him. I think Tomlin was behind him at the time because he was older. But think about that. They are both fantastic NFL coaches for the Steelers and the Bills. And I think the players relate well to them. I'm talking in generalizations. They're fantastic. They have their standards, but they weren't a Power 5 college football player. Doesn't matter, right? And there's other stories like that. It was might have been Bobby Knight, and I might be butchering this because we don't have a producer that can fact check it. One of them played baseball before they coached college basketball. Might have been him. And then, you talk Mike Krzyzewski started his career Army before he went to Duke and almost got fired after 2-3 years because Duke was horrible. And I like the way you said it. They just feel like they have more to give. And sometimes I always figure sometimes the superstars probably find a hard time relating because not that it came easy to them, but when you're at the top of your craft, you expect everybody to be that way. But anyways, I went off on a little bit of a rant there, but
You're all good. Actually, Allie, I have a question for you. What made you decide to get back into coaching? Because I know with you being in Chicago now, like and you're doing what you're doing as a financial analyst, that's a lot. It's very time consuming and involves a lot of work. But what made you decide?
I mean, I think, when I got done playing and I moved out here, it was the least busy I've ever been in my life. Like I went to my job and I came home and I'm like, what else? Like that, like that can't be it. And I just knew there was part of me after I stopped playing, like you said, I looked back and I just saw like a flashback of the time lapse of my life, of like how I developed as a person through all that adversity. And the thought of being able to teach someone one aspect of that or be a part of their journey in that was something that I really wanted to be a part of. And I just love the game of softball. I love it so much for so many reasons. I think more so than other sports too, like you fail a lot and it's really, really tough. And I'm really big on the perspective piece too. I had obviously having the father I have, king of positivity here. He instilled that in me pretty big. And that's just something I try to pass on too. But yeah, so it started kind of slowly here. So I reached out to a travel organization who needed some help and I just started going like kind of like you did. I went to one thing and then two and then three a week and then it became do lessons and you're gonna help coach this team and I kind of just dove headfirst into it. And I think it was tough at first too, because like I said, I think back of all the coaches in my life and how I look at them and how they transformed me. And like I took that seriously when I walked in. I'm like, okay, I need to be prepared. Like I want to think about what I'm doing, what I'm teaching them and everything like that. But it honestly has been the most rewarding experience ever. I love it so much. I'll do like 10 lessons a week. I'll go to practices 3 nights after work, like as much as I can get my hands on. And honestly, people ask me, oh, aren't you tired? I'm like, no, because that doesn't feel like work to me. Like I go and that fills my bucket up and then I come home and I feel productive and I go to bed. Like that gives me purpose and it brings me joy. And I think like everyone should have something in their life like that. I love my job right now. I love coaching. So all of it together has just been really cool. And I'm lucky to work with an organization who's flexible in that with me as well, being able to kind of juggle it all. But
That's awesome.
yeah. So I guess question back to you. So what do you feel like you've probably had a ton of coaches in the past? Do you feel like you've taken bits and pieces from all of them to like get your current coaching style? What do you kind of feel like that is or how your coaching style developed?
I honestly, I think it's more you got to be. It's authentic.
Yeah.
I think it truly has to be like you're solid. I think I always talk in pyramids when I'm explaining things to kids. Like life is like a pyramid. Like you have to have your foundation. And if your foundation is horrible, then you're not going to be able to do whenever adversity strikes, whatever it may be, the pyramid, the building's not going to stand. So I think you have to be yourself. Like that's got to be the base of how you coach. And because that's where you get the kids see the raw emotion and the guys see the raw emotion and they see the uniqueness and they know it's not because you can tell when a coach is putting on a stunt for something.
Yeah.
Or when they're being real about it. So I think probably I would say probably 80% of it is definitely just you going out there and being yourself. And then the other bit is just like minor bits and tweaks of how you are yourself to kind of fit whatever you're coaching. Because I also think like who you are can determine what coaches or what sports and stuff that you can coach.
100%. Yeah.
Me being loud and up and down and running on a field like during that, like I can do that on a lacrosse field. I can't do that as a baseball manager. No disrespect to baseball managers and whatnot, or softball coaches, but you do that and you're getting all antsy and whatnot, and this and that, like you're putting on a show. I mean, you say one wrong thing and you're out of there. I mean,
Matt would be thrown out of every baseball game.
Oh, 100%. 100%. 100%. Because I got questions about a lot of things. Like I ask questions to other coaches. I ask questions to kids. Like,
yeah,
I think a lot of it is that's the other thing too. I think a lot of my coaching comes from the individuals that you're coaching. Like that also has to matter. Like I have the privilege. I couldn't spit that out for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I have the privilege of we have an intern right now in our company who's actually living with me.
Wow. Okay.
And his name's Tade Wynn, and he was the #1 goalie in the 2024 recruiting class. So he's technically supposed to be a freshman at Army this year. This past spring, he blew his ACL, and the Army told him like you have to take a full gap year until you can come back, because then they do their basic training and stuff like that in the summers before you go. They wouldn't even let him go to the prep academy that they'll send a lot of their guys to PG and whatnot. So he hit up Mike and Andrew, who are my bosses, and was like, "You guys have a part-time job or an internship or anything that I can do?" And they were like, "Actually, it's perfect because our summer interns were literally on the way out, and now he's able to step in and kind of fill some of those roles." But anyways, I'm rambling.
No, you're good.
He's been coming and coaching at all of our sessions, the middle school, high school, and the elementary. And I've been just kind of working with him. Like at first I started off just like letting him, "Hey man, you just go take this cage and just go coach this cage. Like, I'm not going to have you do any public speaking or anything like that. Like, just go coach this cage. You see a kid do something wrong, pull him out, coach him up, let him go back in, then go to the next guy." And just kind of starting him off there, and then letting him like develop into his own persona with the one-on-one coaching and getting to know the kids and whatnot. And then that's able to reflect, okay, now that I can coach these kids one-on-one, it's going to help me know how to speak to them when I'm speaking to the group. So now we've got him speaking in demo drills. Like he was given a demonstration tonight in front of we had a middle school session with 13 kids. And he was given a demonstration in front of all 13 about how to play inside shots and how to step and whatnot. And if we would ask him to do that 2 weeks ago, like he'd have been able to give some coaching points and whatnot, because I mean, he has his own unique persona, but now he's learned how to speak to these kids and put it in a tone in a way that they're able to digest and understand that. So there's like I think kind of going back to what you said, a lot of it does come from like getting that experience and learning from the kids and learning how to relate with them. And then once you find that out, it makes it a lot easier to preach to a group. And then you can build off that to learn how to preach to other groups in that same field.
Yeah. I think, have you found too, I find like you pull one person aside and have a conversation with them, and the way you need to coach them is literally a 180 different from the person standing next to them too.
Oh
like
my gosh.
Your approach has got to be so different. But I think that's the beauty of sports, right? Like you don't want 12 the same kids on one team. You want everybody with unique ways that they think and ways that they play. But I think as a coach, it's really unique too, to kind of learn how they think and dive into that and how to best help them and how to control what's going on in their head too, because I think that's a huge one. Huge one too.
Well, I kind of want to go back to Paul, what you said about the best coaches kind of being the
Mhm.
guys that weren't the best players. And now that we've been kind of talking about this, I think a lot of that comes from those guys being the role guys that have to interact and whatnot and be a part of that system. Whereas, like, if you're the star player and whatnot, like everything's built around you. But those other guys that are role players, like you have to find your role and you got to learn all the different parts of the system. So when those guys go to coach, like they understand, you know what? We're gonna build like this guy's our star player. We're gonna build it around him. And then they know how to work and interconnect those role players and those pieces that support staff that you need to have a complete team because they've done it and they've been in that role. I think that's where they get the ability to like really relate to those guys and build strong teams.
It's a great way to put it. And again, it doesn't, we're using that term loosely. Even the role players at this level are great players.
Oh
right?
yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
there's always next tier guys or girls. And I think you said it, they're not forced to interact and they're used to the team revolving around them sometimes. Not all,
Yeah, not always.
but that's probably why they make the best coaches. I got to
Yeah.
talk real quick. The intern that was going to go to Army, is he healing up and plan to continue a college career?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's going to PT and whatnot. He was at PT today.
Nice.
He's on track to he's gonna start taking shots again. We have these soft foam balls that we use for inside and mid-range shots so we can pepper the goalies with reps and not kill them with the hard rubber balls.
That's
He's able to start taking shots with those. He was saying sometime in like late December, early January, but he should be full go by I think early February at the latest.
It, it'll
awesome.
be it'll be interesting because I think sometimes you have even a greater love for the game once you come back from something like that.
Yes, I agree.
And all right, next question for me. Sorry, I'm dominating a little right now, Allie.
Go for it.
The thing that bothers me the most about coaching is when I'm all in, I've got my philosophy, my positivity, track record, whatever you want to say. And then there's just sometimes players that don't connect. I mean, I have players, whether it's softball, they don't come out for the team the next year after being on the team this year. And I take that very personal. And there's no right or wrong. I mean, sometimes people just find other interests, they get burnt out, maybe they don't connect with you. Do you ever see that with some of the players you're working with?
Oh yeah, we see it. We see it all the time. Because the way we train is it's basically like a goalie a lacrosse Zumba class. There's music playing, and it is high paced, energy up in your face, like challenging you, pushing you to your limits. I mean, you could ask some of our guys when you come to a session. I mean, those guys will probably do 50 to 75 push-ups in a session just from like competition losses and stuff like that. And then we're going for 90 minutes. And when we start, after we do really the intros and whatnot, and we get the stretch going, and once the stretch is done and we go right into hand-eye, it is boom, whistles are blowing, music's playing, getting on guys about all the smallest thing. Like we're doing a hand-eye juggling drill where you could just stand straight-legged. And if you walk by a kid and he's standing straight-legged, it's like, you're not looking at him saying like, do you want to be here today? But it's like, hey, let's go, man. Like, come on, lock in, get down in your stance. Like you got to push the pace. Like it's all about the little details and how we train. And I think part of it is it forces kids to realize like, do I want to be here or do I not? And I mean, I like what a lot of what I do too is I have relationships with a lot of our goalies off the field for recruiting purposes and whatnot. And just like even the guys that aren't getting recruited, like just checking in on them, like, hey man, how's it going with the club ball stuff, like this and that, talking about sessions and hey, you played really well last week. Like, what was something in your head that clicked for you? Was it a mental thing? Was it a physical thing? Like, all right, let's write that down. Just like having those relationships, and whenever we do come across that where somebody comes and they may not be all bought in, or they may come for a while and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, where did he go or where did she go? Like, we reach out and
Yeah.
just ask, like, hey, what's going on? Like, just checking in. Haven't really seen you. Is everything okay? Like, is there anything we can do to help? Whether it be get you to a session or just like in your whatever scenario is going on in life. And a lot of the kids are upfront and honest with us. Um, and we have seen scenarios where kids are like, you know what, like that this really isn't for me, and that's fine, because I'd rather you figure that out now than go down the line and just keep doing it. And because a lot of it too that we see with something like that is the parents, like sometimes the parents want it a lot more than the kid.
Yeah.
And you can just see a kid show up to a session and this kid's like just walking and the shoulders are down and he's like this and standing there in the huddle. And he goes to it when like we make all the kids give introductions. Name, grad year, club ball team, go.
Yeah.
And it gets to him and all of a sudden it's like, Gill, four sets, 17. And you're like, okay, this. So I think like a lot of the kids are honest with us about that stuff. And like, if they say like, you know what, like maybe this isn't for me, like that's fine. And we wish them the best. And we always leave the door open. Like, hey man, if you do decide like you do want to try to play lacrosse or college, or you decide to come back and play lacrosse again, or you want to come back and you think you want to go train and take another training route, and by all means, like do what's best for you, but the door's always open. And if you need anything in the meantime, like help finding a new coach or something like that, like we're happy to help you. But yeah, it's definitely something that we do run into.
I think too, you hit the nail on the head, because going back to the identity piece we talked about earlier, when you know that your coach cares about you on a personal level too, it just totally transforms your relationship with them. I think it makes the player coach connection 100% better, right? Because I always want the girls I coach to know, like, you can come to me with anything, and when I say that, it's not just softball. Like, I will be in your corner if whenever you need me to be. And I think that's one of the most important qualities a coach can have. And to your point, you know, what my dad was saying too, that's why it's so hard sometimes when they want to walk away, but they need to do whatever's best for them. And I think going back to your point, Matt, you can kind of tell if someone wants to be there. One of the telltale signs for me, do you care about the small details? Yes or no? Because I think someone who cares about really small details, I'm like, they're locked in, like they're committed to getting better all the time. And sometimes girls or guys, it could just be they've never had that level of coaching before. They're not used to being, you know, like looked at that closely and nitpicked that hard. But I think for some kids, oh, when you're not looking and you just kind of stop doing the little stuff, it's like, okay, maybe we need to, you know, reevaluate how committed you are to this. And if you want to walk away, again, that's 100% fine. Go do what makes you happy. Because at the end of the day, your happiness has got to come from you, right? It can't come from what anyone else wants you to do. And I think it's just about having those honest conversations with kids. And like you said, hopefully having the relationship where they can be honest with you. So I think the fact that your players are honest with you speaks to you being a great coach too, because that's not always the case either.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think you're right, 100%.
You know, walking away, and that's the beauty of sports. I mean, not everybody can go pro, not everybody plays in college.
What? No.
Yeah, I know. No, but if you walk away, I guess what bothers me when a player does it, why are you walking away? Are you walking away to not do anything? Or are you walking away because you have other challenges and interests you want to pursue, right? I mean, I I failed as a pro golfer. I failed as a lot of things, but all the discipline and lessons I learned, all the years I practiced so hard has led me to X, Y, and Z. And now as a guy twice your age, I'm still going, right? I mean, if I was Drake, I'd be a rollie, not a stopwatch. You know what I'm saying?
There it is. Yes, I was hoping. I was hoping when we got on this podcast, I was
Yeah.
going to get one, and I did. Yes.
Well, I know I've been a little down with that tonight, but again, if you accept the challenge doesn't have to be the only challenge you ever pursue is that sport. Take those lessons and take that mindset and do it in everything you want to do in life. And to me, that's happiness. So when they walk away, that's the question I always ask. What are they walking away to? Right. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna say too, I think sometimes the message, like, you don't have to play in college. Like, if you want to play for fun, 100% play for fun. But the part that bothers me is when they want to play for fun, but they only want to work hard when they feel like it. Like, you can still play for fun, but you should be all into what you're doing all the time. And that's the part that I struggle with sometimes, right? If you show up, be where your feet are, right? Like, give 100% to everything that you're doing. And I guess that's just the way I live. So sometimes I struggle to kind of see the flip side of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think a lot of it too is like we ask these kids, when we ask these kids, hey, what's going on? And they tell us, you can normally judge by the answer they give whether it's truthful or not. And if it is truthful, like you can tell if it's if it's their decision or if it's not. And B, like if they learn something from it. Because you can kind of hear that, you can hear the emotion and the tone and stuff when they're speaking to you. And I like going back to what you said, Paul, about like just taking the lessons and applying them elsewhere in life. Like I think a lot of these kids too, when like for me, losing the game of lacrosse for a semester was the greatest thing that happened because I realized like you realize what you have and what you don't. And some of these kids think they have something better and they don't, or they want to go a different route. And then all of a sudden you're like, no, like this is actually like what I love to do. I was just kind of whether it be you were fed up with something, like you said, talk about burnout, just not being in the right spot for you, where going back to what Ali talked about earlier, like not pinning yourself down in a corner, but being able to keep your options open with different things. Like having that ability to then go back and take those lessons and stuff that you've learned, like it that applies more than anything you could read in a textbook. It applies more than anything you could see online in a video or anything like that. Like that real world experience, whether it be in a sport or in a job, like just having that, being able to be thrown in a fire and take some bumps and bruises and lumps and whatnot, like that's the stuff that translates into real life in every aspect in ways that you don't even realize until something happens and you have that little, call it a come to Jesus moment where you're like, oh, that's why I did that.
Yeah.
So
I think too, like those moments give you that bird's eye view of things you can't see clearly. So, I mean, you talk about injury, COVID, like it forces you to take a step back that you wouldn't have taken otherwise and see the big picture of what you're in instead of this narrow little piece. And I like how you said that come to Jesus moment because that's so true. Like it just clicks in your head and you're like, whoa, like the biggest revelation sometimes.
oh yeah.
I'm excited, as we wrap this up. That's everything I'm about. You both had me in class for better, for worse, your senior years. And we try to preach, go for it, do what's meaningful. I mean, big picture, it may not always be the path you want to be on that moment, but so many people get trapped once they find something they think they like, and then they stop pursuing other interests and they stop challenging themselves. And then you look back and you're like, what the hell just happened? And neither of you seem to be doing that. I mean, Matt, what you're doing is awesome. I see the Instagram clips where you are running up and down the sideline and
Fires
cheering.
me up, Matt. I watch one. I'm like,
High
oh,
energy. Yeah. I love it. And you're making a difference. And you probably couldn't have ever thought in a million years that's what you'd be doing when you were 18, 19 years old. And I mean, I make it sound like you're 50 now. That's not the point. You're just running with it. And no matter what you do in the future, you're going to take these same skills and transfer them into high energy coaching at whatever level, helping kids or adults do A, B, or C. And we're proud of you for it. So I think it's cool.
I appreciate it, man. I can't thank you guys enough for having me on the podcast. I mean, I follow all the Instagram clips and listen to an episode here and there, and I the opportunity to be able to do this with you guys it's truly been a blessing. I mean, it's another thing too, like just trying something out. Like I've done 2 podcasts in my life, and both of them have been with you guys. But
Yeah,
to try something like
Heck
this,
yeah.
heck
who
yeah.
knows?
No, it's awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. This has been awesome.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, talk soon, Matt.
Yes, of course.
Yep, bye.
Thank you guys.